Okay, welcome everyone. We'll call this meeting to order and we welcome those that are participating from home. And we're glad everyone can join us here tonight in the gallery, and we're glad our staff are here tonight. And we'll move on to our O Canada, please. If everyone could rise for O Canada. Thank you, everyone. And again, welcome to all that are participating and viewing here tonight. We'll ask that everyone make sure their cell phones are off or on mute. That would be appreciated. And we will begin our meeting with the land acknowledgement. As we gather, we are reminded that the municipality of South Huron is situated on Treaty 29 land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history and home to First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people here today. As a community, we have a responsibility to honor and respect this territory's significance for the Indigenous peoples who lived and continue to live upon it, and whose practices and spiritualities were tied to the land and continue to develop in relationship to the territory and its other inhabitants today. In the spirit of reconciliation and truth, we acknowledge the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee peoples on whose traditional territory we are meeting. And thank you everyone for that. We'll move to item number 2. Ms. Masuda Carlson, please.
That South Huron Council approves the agenda as presented.
And I move it, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Item 14.1, Avon-Maitland District School Board meeting highlights. The general nature being I'm an employee of the Avon-Maitland District School Board. So if that item is pulled, I'll be stepping out of the meeting. Yes.
Thank you. So this is under 4.1, our Employee Long-Term Service Awards. So as the proud mayor of South Huron, I have a special duty, a privilege, I would say, to recognize a number of significant individuals that make South Huron such a great place to live. The first relates to our staff, and as I've said many times, our greatest resource is our human resource. They do the heavy lifting every day and keep the organization moving. And every year, the municipality of South Huron recognizes the dedication of loyal team members who have reached significant career milestones. Could not be here tonight. I am very pleased to publicly recognize their long-term service with all of you. So first of all, from our Community Services Department, Ms. Jenna Bilkey was awarded her 10-year service award. And if you were not aware, Jenna started as a co-op student with us at the beginning of her career. It is a success story and how important it is to cultivate that interest in municipal work and for our young people to grow within the organization. We want to thank Jenna for her dedication and commitment to South Huron and for being an important part of the community services team by providing a welcoming and knowledgeable persona at the Recreation Center. Interactions with the public and working as a team creates the great success that she has achieved. So there's Jenna there. And from our transportation services, Mr. Jim Nyson was awarded his 10-year service award. Jim, on behalf of South Huron, we appreciate your dedication and commitment for the work you do every day. From operating heavy equipment and repairing things when the need arises, makes you an integral part of the transportation team. We encourage you to continue to learn and pass on your skills to the younger team members, just like Dale, Dwight, and others have done in the past. And personally, I had an opportunity to work with Jim in 2016 and know firsthand his great work ethic. So on behalf of council, thank you very much, Jim. And you see Jim with Mr. Giberson there. And finally, Mr. Bill Armstrong was awarded his 20-year service award. Bill, your dedication and commitment in serving the community and providing leadership to new members of the transportation team will have a ripple effect for years to come. I've known Bill and his family for decades, and we are extremely fortunate to have the Armstrong family in South Huron, as several members of his family have also contributed significantly. I also worked with Bill in 2016 and can attest to his high work ethic as they all work as a team. And again, thank you very much, Bill, and you'll see Bill there with Mr. Giberson. South Huron is a better place, and not just because of Jenna, Jim, and Bill, but because they are a part of an overall incredibly loyal and dedicated team that works collaboratively every day. And to achieve great success, you must start with great people, and we have the greatest people anywhere in the world. So on behalf of council and the community, congratulations to the three of you, and thank you. Are there any comments from council? No, let's join with the applause. Sorry, 4.2 is not proceeding tonight. They're unable to attend tonight, so we'll go on to our delegations. Mr. Sue Carlson.
We have the United Way Perth Huron, quality of life in Perth Huron.
Hey, welcome, Kristen. How are you tonight?
I am doing well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am Kristen Crane, the Director of Social Research and Planning from the United Way, and I'm coming to share some of the findings from our new series of research reports, Quality of Life in Perth and Huron. And we have taken hundreds of pieces of data and organized it into 5 different reports, and they're written in a really accessible and easy understand way, and they all include recommendations for further actions. And the highlights from these 5 reports have been compiled into the executive summary that you received. These are the 5 reports. They're all found on United Way Perth Huron website under research, if you would like to dive in deeper to some of the information. First, I'll talk about some of the population and demographic trends in our region, and this can help us to better understand how we can tailor our services and programs according to our population and by age, geography, gender, or elements of diversity. Currently in Huron County, the median age is 46.8, and this hasn't changed much over the last 5-year period. Individuals aged 60 to 64 are the largest percentage of the population. According to our most recent census in 2021, 61,366 people live in Huron County, and the population overall has increased by just over 2,000 people, or 3.5%. And you can see here that ACW has had the largest increase in Huron County. And based on some estimates, the total population is predicted to grow by 9% by the year 2034. Right now, our population increase is contributed to intraprovincial migration, and that is individuals moving from elsewhere in Ontario. And we've seen that the rates have increased significantly over the last 5 years. This just shows some of the breakdown of household features in our region. And I just want to draw your attention to the number of people that live in a 1-person household at 29%. And this has a large impact we'll see later in the presentation when we see how much income it requires to cover shelter costs. And I just want to point out that we do have diversity in our community. We have all seen it. It's not large in comparison to the rest of the province. However, it's keeping with other rural populations. You can see that we have a significant Indigenous population as well as immigrants in our region. And where we differ quite significantly from the province is the percentage of racialized population at only 2% in Huron County versus 34% in Ontario. And racialized refers to people who do not identify as white or Caucasian. And education is an important factor in quality of life. In general, more highly educated people are healthier, more active socially, and better paid. And this graph is displaying the highest level of education for people aged 25 to 64 that have been achieved. And compared to the province, a greater percentage of people in Perth and Huron do not have a high school diploma. And a greater proportion of people who obtain a high school diploma do not pursue further education. The most notable difference from the province is the smaller proportion of residents with bachelor's degrees or higher in Perth and Huron as compared to the province. However, our career opportunities and our local workforce demand for skills do align well with education and training in the skilled trade. And you can see here that there's a large proportion of people who have obtained non-apprenticeship and apprenticeship trade certificates. So the living wage, I'm sure you're most familiar with that. We've talked to you a bit about it in the past, has been recently calculated as $22.75 per hour. And for the second year in a row, we are the second highest rate in Ontario. And we see that the gap between a living wage and minimum wage has grown more and more significantly, and it's now at just over $6 per hour. The minimum wage is not calculated annually and based on cost of living or adjusted. So we can see that our incomes are quite low in comparison to what the cost of living is here, with the Huron median income being just about $3,000 less than the provincial average. Adequate housing is a human right according to Canadian and international law. And generally speaking, housing is considered affordable if all shelter costs amount to less than 30% of a household's before tax income. So this would also include utilities. In Huron, 16% of homeowners and 31% of renters are spending more than 30% of their income on shelter costs. And when we go back to that statistic of 29% of households are a one-person household, if you are making the median after tax if you're making the median yearly income, which is about $37,000 for a household, that would mean that a one-bedroom rental would account for 46% of your income, or a bachelor apartment would account for 35% of your income. So that is the reality for a significant number of folks in our region. In our region, 14% of tenant households are in core housing need or housing poverty. And this means that their housing is some combination of unaffordable, inadequate, or unsuitable, and that alternative housing would also be unaffordable. 15% of tenants in Huron live in subsidized housing. And we do know that wait lists for subsidized housing are long, and many people will have to wait for as many as 5 years to move into it. And when we say subsidized housing, that refers to any housing that's made financially accessible to low-income households. From a survey that we conducted last year, November 2022, to understand household food insecurity, we found out that 63% of respondents experienced food insecurity in the past year. And this was looking at over 700 surveys. And we found that 24% of people's incomes did not meet their needs. And within the survey respondents, 87% said they had to sacrifice their food budget to pay for other living expenses such as rents or mortgages or transportation. And that 63% of respondents were employed full-time. So our survey does validate the finding that poverty is the root cause of food insecurity. It also provides another indication that wages are not matching the rising cost of living. and it's just cut off here. It says discrimination in Perth and Huron. It's together as a region. So in 2021, the Huron County Immigration Partnership conducted a survey to understand discrimination as experienced by immigrants, visible minorities, and Indigenous people. And in our region, 81% of Indigenous people, followed by 69% of immigrants and visible minorities, had experienced discrimination. Within immigrants and visible minorities, Black people at 86% reported experiencing discrimination the most. For comparison, London Middlesex conducted the exact same survey during the same time frame, and their results were quite different, with 62% of Indigenous people experiencing discrimination, 37% of immigrants and visible minorities. And their control group of non-immigrant Caucasian folks was at 44%, having experienced discrimination. So we have some work to do in this area. This is probably not too surprising. We've heard a lot about how COVID-19 has impacted people, and this speaks to the impact on our youth, with 51% of youth reporting their anxiety having increased in Ontario, and 54% saying their loneliness increased due to the pandemic. And this comes from the 2021 Ontario Student Drug Use and Health Survey. Fortunately, if we want to look at overall youth health and well-being, we can do, there's a lot of actions that we can take to reduce the risk of poor mental health. And this chart is showing the rates of opioid-related emergency department visits and deaths in Huron and Perth combined. This is not actuals, it's reported as per 100,000 of the population, so actual numbers would be higher. Opioids are a massive challenge that we're facing, but it's not unique to Huron County. It's being faced all across the country. The emergency department visits shown in this chart don't show the true impact of overdose events in the community because many people are not seen at the hospital. Frontline service providers such as EMS, firefighters, police, and other community members are reversing overdoses by giving naloxone, and this may not be recorded in an emergency department visit. We also have data on our environmental factors of quality of life, and here it's showing the forecasted average temperature, and it is increasing. It's predicted to rise up to 13.4 degrees in our area by the year 2081. This sounds quite far in the future, but it is within the lifetime of our current youth.
Hello.
Climate anxiety is a newer term and something I learned about through conducting this research. And it is distress that's felt about climate change and its impact on the environment. And it's a source of depression and worry for youth. I want to change gears a little bit and talk about some of the happy statistics and information that we can celebrate as our region, because there is a lot of that as well in our reports.
Hello. Hello.
In comparison to Ontario as a whole, people in Perth and Huron reported feeling less stressed. The majority of residents are either satisfied or very satisfied with their work-life balance. And when you look at self-reported life satisfaction, that is one of the most direct measures of quality of life. And happily in Huron County, 97% of people report being either moderately satisfied or very satisfied with their lives. So that's excellent news. We also have a really strong small business and nonprofit sector, and they contribute to quality of life in many ways and reflect the communities in which they operate. Small businesses have a high rate of participation in the community. They purchase goods and services from other local businesses and hold fundraisers and volunteer at local events. And nonprofits, in addition to small businesses, employ many people in our region. We have a very large number of micro businesses, and that's people who employ 1 to 4 employees, and small businesses, which are 5 to 9 employees. And this data also includes nonprofits, and they're contributing significantly to the economy and our communities. Just want to talk about some of the recommendations that we have in our reports. I've just pulled a few here that might speak well to your leadership. One of the large things that we can do is ensuring that our local workforce earns a living wage or a wage that is reflective of the cost of living. Also supporting the businesses who provide this is an action that we can take. As workplaces and local government or community organizations, we should engage in diversity education and training that is focused on reducing and preventing discrimination. And that will ensure that our communities are welcoming places for everyone. The Renfrew recommendations came out about 1 year ago after the murder of 3 women in rural Ontario. And in that, they recommend that everyone in the community learn about risk factors and warning signs of intimate partner violence. The online training is really easily accessible, free, and in as little as 1 hour, you can learn about steps to hopefully reduce intimate partner violence. When we're designing parks and new facilities, using best practices for equity and inclusion is important. We can also support libraries as our community hubs to allow them to expand their lending programs, which include passes and equipment to access parks and recreational opportunities. And the great thing about this is that it's providing free programming to anyone regardless of income within the community. As we know, the number of people experiencing homelessness is growing, so is our population, and the rental market isn't able to meet the demand. But as leaders, by voicing support for deeply affordable and workforce housing, this will have an impact on the community's opinion and reduce opposition to developments that we really need. I hope these reports are going to help inform you to make decisions that you need to make for the community and allow you to support everyone in the region. It took us 5 reports to explain quality of life. It can't just be a simple measurement, unfortunately, but I am happy that we're able to pull this information together to share with you issues that we can work on and findings that we can celebrate in our community. And I'm happy to address any questions through you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Kristen. Well done. Are there any questions? Councillor Neeb, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Finch, and thank you, Kristen, for the presentation today. In your presentation, you noted the importance of offering training and programming to reduce and prevent discrimination, increase social actions between diverse populations. And I was wondering if you had any ideas of what other municipalities were doing in order to facilitate this action.
Go ahead, Kristen.
Thank you. In terms of other municipalities, I know that there have been specific training based upon demographics in the community or reports that community members have shared about population changes. There is excellent training that's offered by the the Association of Muslim Women in Kitchener-Waterloo that talks about Islamophobia and how to combat it and how to better understand Muslim culture. And I know that some municipalities have undertaken that. There is really good training that's available through either the Immigration Partnership has it online or through local organizations that is about how to be an ally. And so that provides some kind of simple measures that a person can take to become involved in situations effectively when a person realizes that something discriminatory is taking place. So it's not something that we're necessarily equipped to do naturally, but it gives you some really succinct steps of how to safely and effectively insert yourself into a situation to kind of change the outcomes for it. And I know that some municipal staff undertook that training. And I would just recommend reaching out to the Immigration Partnership. They are quite aware of the different trainings that are available. And some of it they already have recorded that they could share with the municipality.
Thank you. Follow up,
Thank
Mr.
you.
No, it's a separate question, not necessarily a follow-up, but thank you for your response. Another item that you spoke about in the report is supporting and approving deeply affordable housing. And I know that recently the United Way of Perth Huron announced a new nonprofit focused on affordable housing. And I was just wondering how, as a municipality, we can support that and potentially be involved.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. If you're inquiring directly about the United Housing Enterprise, I would recommend getting in touch with Ryan Erb and the team that's working on setting up the nonprofit housing. They know of the different stages that different projects are at, or the possibilities for new projects within the region. And they'll have some options that would be available to other community members or municipalities. And then more generally speaking, the Social Research and Planning Council is working with different partners at the municipal level and at the nonprofit level to design an education campaign that is targeting community members and educating them about some of the factors that are kind of creating this housing crisis locally, and also to better understand what levels of government are able to respond to. So it's designed to educate people about the problem with some real information and data, and provide them with some tools of how to effectively get involved. And part of that is designed, we hope, to alleviate pressures that municipalities are feeling with regards to housing, because as our government system is laid out, municipalities are able to undertake some of the responsibilities and decisions, but a lot of it remains with the provincial government and the federal government. So we're wanting to teach the community about that. So when those materials are ready, we're really happy to share them with South Huron and other partners. And if you're able to share and distribute them through your networks, that I think would help people understand how to effectively get involved and not be an impediment to the type of developments that we need to have in our region.
Thank you, Kristen. Anything else, Councillor Neeb? Councillor Oak, you had something. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thanks, Kristen, for the presentation tonight. Just on the United Way on this front.
Kristen?
Thank you. So we don't do any work specifically on trying to recruit folks into different sectors. We are happy to partner with our local economic development folks or sector folks that are looking at that, but we do know it is a large issue, and where we've chosen to place ourselves into the situation is advocating for living wage. A lot of information that we sorted through in developing these reports pointed towards recruitment barriers being the low wage, generally speaking, for somebody who chooses a career in early childhood education. And that is one of the largest barriers to ensuring that there's enough people working in this sector to meet the demand. So that's where we would say that work can be done, is as much as possible increasing the wages, because they're doing an incredibly important job that is very demanding, and that everyone, including early childhood educators, deserves to earn a wage that allows them to lead a decent quality of life.
Thank you. Councillor Oak?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you very much, Kristen, for your presentation tonight. It's very rewarding to see you at these meetings.
Thank you very much for having me. Good evening.
Thank you. Ms. Masua Carlson, recommendation, please.
The South Huron Council receives a delegation from United Way, Perth Huron, regarding the quality of life in Perth Huron, as presented by Kristen Crane.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, second by Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 5. Sorry, You're, okay, so carries a seven. Thank you very much. 5.2, we welcome our friend Jim Craigmile. How are you doing, Craig? Jim, come on in. Jim's a counselor over in St. Mary's, so he's a rep for the UTRCA. Good to have you.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Mayor Finch, councilors, staff, and guests. I'm actually here tonight I'm wearing all kinds of different hats, but as a member of the board at the Upper Thames River Conservation Area, I'm actually representing the town of St. Mary's, South Huron, and Perth South. So somehow I was a lucky chosen one this year from St. Mary's to sit on this board. And I'm not going to say it's been easy because there's been a lot of changes with the Conservation Act. So this first budget we've went through, because I wasn't involved previously, I didn't have anything to kind of look back and see, because things that used to maybe generate some revenue profits from one area may get put into another area previously. And that's not the case anymore with, now it's really defined as what they do. And I think some of that might have came from campground areas. So when you get to category, well, we can talk about the different categories. When you get to category 3, the campground areas are completely separate because they're trying to run them revenue neutral or make a profit and look at future capital they may need. So you do have a draft, or I assume everyone has seen the draft. You might have fell off your seat when you saw the total increase that they're asking for. I know one of your concerns was, what really does South Huron get from category 3? And to be quite honest, I'm not sure if there's anything being done at special events that they may do, but I would think so. I do know that a lot of people around, especially landowners, will call and ask questions, whether it be through Maitland and the conservation acts. Conservation authorities, they do work very closely together. So if they don't have the expertise there, they may contact Upper Thames or whatever for the expertise of getting information on land uses. Outreach and education, I do believe, and I'm pretty sure I'm not wrong on this, but I do believe that the closest school that does any sort of outreach for students in the public school and high school would be in Mitchell. I'm pretty sure that's the closest there. And water monitoring, I think there's a stream close by, and I can't tell you if it's a Upper Thames monitor in there, or the provincial government does have, there's 30 some odd or more in the round, but provincial government does have some, but the data is all goes to Upper Thames. So category 2 is all, it's all being looked after. It's not on the tax levy. So I don't know if I've helped on any of those sort of questions, but I can say that what I've learned from the big drivers this year for the for the over 20% increase in budget, I think the biggest driver was the Conservation Act changes. So I think they're saying there's certain mandates they have to do, and one is looking at all the land that they have. Just a little north of St. Mary's, there's a large tract of land where many, many years ago, they thought about putting a dam in the Glengowan. So there's a lot of farmland there in the valley, and they're probably all over the other area. There's all kinds. So they have to document it all. They have to decide what they need to keep, what they want to get rid of. But there's a lot of questions there. They have no idea if they get rid of something, will it go back to them to use future, or will it go to the province of Ontario to their I mean, there's still a lot of unanswered questions that I'm privy to. So in a lot of these changes of the Conservation Act, they have determined that they do not have enough staff and the right qualified staff to look after the act changes. So I think there's they're looking at about 9.4 full-time equivalents, but I think about 6 full-time equivalents is to kind of streamline to be looking after these changes to the act. So there was other equivalents that they were going to get anyways, or they had planned on for trying to improve the speed for planning. Planning's a good example. So I'm not sure what else I can say to you, except I'll try and answer any questions that I can. And if you hear me use the name Tracy Ann, Tracy, I think she's been here. Hasn't Tracy been there? Yeah, the manager, and she'd be the one to give the appropriate question, appropriate answers to the questions. But I'll do my darndest to try and help you out in any way I can. So I just leave it at that and open up to any questions.
Well, thanks, Jim. Any questions for Jim? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Hi, Jim. Nice
Good.
to have you here. I'm kind of the flip side of what you are. I don't have 3 municipalities, but I have South Huron and Perth South to represent at the Ausable Bayfield Conservation Authority. And when we were going through at the ABCA, our category 1, 2, 3, we basically went out to all of the municipalities, including Perth South, and explained what we were putting into the category 3. A lot of focus on that. Perth South, in the course of getting everybody's approval back to be a part of the category 3 expenses, actually declined to participate. We were never really sure why, other than a statement to the effect that they really didn't feel they got any value from participating with our category 3. So some of, at least from my perspective, in terms of having you here, and thank you for coming, was to ask the flip side question in terms of what is it that South Huron is getting for its category 3. Because I don't know if we get any education. That's usually the more expensive of all of the different categories in category 3. Yeah.
I would believe you're correct, and I'm not sure really what you get specifically right here. Unless there happens to be some sort of a function, an event, and something might be here, but I have no idea. I guess the one thing I didn't mention was in the category 3, there's a lot of species at risk, and I don't think there's anything in the northern part of the watershed. I think, a lot of the soft shelled turtles that they look after, but I think this year there was a little over 10,000 released, but I think their habitat grounds was south of London, I believe.
Could be,
Yeah.
could be. The only other, when you're looking at stewardship and monitoring type of things, the only other possible that we might be getting some value for in that category is we have Fish Creek over in Usburn. And I do know that some of the website reports that the Upper Thames puts on their web
Their website.
do talk about the quality of water and the species available in that Fish Creek. So that's the only thing I could kind of think of in terms of how we touch. Yeah,
And I would think you're probably correct.
yeah. So,
Great. Anything further, Councillor Vaughn?
nope.
Good. Any other questions for Jim? Great. Oh, Councillor Oak.
Yeah, I noticed, thanks, Mayor. I noticed there's a fee review that's being done, or their policy is being updated in the latest agenda that's coming out or just came
Yes.
out. And notice that a lot of the fees are remaining constant. But I did notice that they're and maybe that's a strategy, as you said, the campgrounds are being kept separately maybe. And I noticed the day use passes for like Fanshawe Park and Pittock and Wildwood are all going like from $15 to $16. So that's what they charge for day use passes for those parks. And just wondered, as a board, have you guys reviewed the fee policy that they've presented yet?
Yes, at the last meeting, the board was given the fee package. And there was, I'm going to say usually around cost of living, it was in that, I'll say in that 4 to 6% range, although there was a few that dropped, but a few went up significantly, in that 10, 12%. I can't remember exactly what they were off the top of my head, but there was a couple. And they might have been in the planning, because there's a lot of different fees besides just campgrounds.
Great. Any other questions for Jim? Not seeing any. Thank you very much, Jim. Great.
I do have one question. And feel free to, if you email me any questions you do have, and I can always get them answered, but probably by the end of January, I would like to hear from South Huron Council as to some sort of direction when it comes to budget time. Because I'll be voting separately for Perth South, South Huron and St. Mary's. And if there's any particular one paragraph or 2-sentence statement you would like me to let the rest of the board members know, I'd be more than happy to read that out. And I think because you have somebody on, they have on Maitland board and you see differences, I think anything there would be very helpful for the rest of the board members. You know, I personally, I do believe that.
Councillor Vaughn, comment?
Yes, Jim, just to be clear, we're the Sable Bayfield Conservation. Maitland's just a bit farther north. Yeah, so we'll keep that in mind as January rolls along. Right now, you're mentioning a potential 20% increase. Okay, and so we've got some time between now and when the budget is supposed to be adopted, I think on your annual general meeting date in February. So have you any sense of, will that rate be coming down? Are you having any more discussions about how to rationalize that?
I thought it might come down a little bit from the first time I saw those numbers. And then the next time it really didn't budge. So I don't think it'll come down. If it comes down all the way, it won't be significant. I mean, if that's a fair statement to say.
Councillor Vaughn?
Okay, so this is just only a quick little statement, but our overall increase on our budget for ABCA this year, which has been approved by the board, is 2.7%. So that just sort of gives you an indication of the difference.
And I have asked similar questions like the one you just presented at the board. What are other conservation areas doing, and some of the responses are things like each one is operating differently, and some have charged 100% levy forever, and we're in a catch-up stage. And I'm not, you know, there seems to always be an answer. Yeah.
Thanks, Jim. Councillor Folk.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just to Councillor Vaughn's comments, there will be some sort of a statement, I expect, because I don't think we're happy with a 28% increase proposed for our municipality. Or I don't think we should be anyways. I think that's significant. So I'm sure there'll be some sort of a statement coming your way, Jim. So
thank you.
And I see our CEO writing that down as we speak, so it's already going into the record there. Deputy.
Yes, thank you for the presentation, but I understand the part of the 28% because you're looking at 9 full-time plus. That's a lot of full-time employees and a lot of wages that's going to have to be added on. Did I get that correct? There's 9 full-time employees?
9.4 is what, yeah. Sometime throughout the year, there'll be, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If you want me to add something to that, I might as well, because it's all on YouTube. Is that one of the board members asked about the full-time equivalents hired to look after these needs of the conservation area to meet the takes 1 to 2 years. It's supposed to be done by the end of 2024, but if it say took a little longer than that, if there happens to be an extension, let's say it took an extra year, then what happens to those staff? And it was, they were going to move them into other positions within the, you know, so.
Deputy?
So as of now, are these contract positions that are coming in?
No,
So they are,
they'll be full-time and they're going to stay on into other areas.
They're permanent.
Permanent.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions for Jim? Okay, not seeing. Thanks very much, Jim. Great
Okay,
presentation.
thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Okay. And Ms. Masuda calls and recommendation, please.
The South Huron Council receives a delegation regarding follow-up on the Upper Thames River Conservation Authority 2024 budget as presented by Jim Craigmile.
And a mover, Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries a 7. Thank you. On to 7.1, I believe.
The South Huron Council adopts the minutes of the budget meeting of November 27th, 2023, and the public and regular council meetings of December 4th, 2023, as printed and circulated.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Cloud Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Moving on, number 8.
That the minutes agendas and meeting highlights of the following committees and or boards be received as presented to council. Upper Thames River Conservation Authority draft minutes of October 31st, 2023, and agenda package of November 28th, 2023. Police Services Board minutes of November 14th, 2023, and the October report. Exeter Business Improvement Area minutes of November 15th, 2023. Ausable Bayfield Conservation Authority draft minutes of November 16th, 2023, and agenda package of December 14th, 2023. Blue Water Recycling Association meeting highlights of November 30th, 2023.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor Oak. Any discussion? Councillor Oak, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just a question, or as a follow-up, the Police Services Board, just wondering, I know that we received the Morrison Line Speed Spy report after our last council meeting as a separate attachment, and just wondered, is there, so that goes to the police OPP, and then what happens after that, Jim? Just trying to get the process figured out here, and if there's a follow-up by the board after, or what the story is.
Deputy?
Yes, it goes to the police, goes to the OPP station. They do their program, and normally we'll get a report back, but it won't come right away because they have to go through their traffic stuff. But yes, we should get a report back to the Police Services Board. We have on some of the other ones, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Deputy, go ahead.
Sorry, just a comment. When you go through this and go to the bottom, when you look at the weighted hours, there's quite a difference in the number of hours from 23, 7,343. And in 22, it was 6,882. So that is quite a difference in the numbers of the hours. So I'm not sure whether that's good but it's definitely happening. And thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? That carries a 7. Thank you. 8.6, I believe.
That the October 26, 2023 minutes of the Grand Bend and Arias Joint Sewage Board be received as presented, and that South Huron Council approve the Grand Bend and Area Joint Sewage Board 2024 budget.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, I just wanted to give some follow-up information. Councillor Oak asked a question the last time the budget was actually presented at this council, and it was regarding reserves. Reserves are shown on the budget as a revenue item without actually, as a revenue item and as an expense item. And so I contacted Nick over at Lambton Shores to ask a little bit more about our current reserve position. He's subsequently reported back that the current balance within the reserve funds is $1,324,000. The current interest rate on that reserve fund is 5.65%, so that's a fairly good rate. And that the reserves themselves are just as a reminder, are only collected for the plant. They do not include the PS2. Okay, so we have different percentage ownership in that plant. So definitely the reserve ownership portion for Lambton Shores is much higher than ours. We're around 38% and they have the rest. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Oak?
Just a comment. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Vaughn, for following up on that. Just wondered where that number came from and sort of the flow. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments before we move along? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? That carries a 7. Thank you. Next one, please, 8.7.
That South Huron Council receives the draft minutes of November 29th, 2023 as presented and approve the following recommendations from the Exeter Rodeo Committee. That a $10,000 donation be made to the local food bank and that the municipality of South Huron enter into a 1-year contract with Rodeo Management Group in the amount of $40,000.
Thank you. We have a mover, please. Moved by Councillor, or Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Neeb. Discussion? Councillor Oak?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm just wondering, there was a budget attached to the documents today, and it had the rodeo budget for 2023 for January 2023 to December. I guess I'm just wondering, it showed 3,000 net income. But what date, do you know what date that this budget was up to? Just wondering, because it won't be obviously to the end of December sort of thing. So just wondering where we might sit come the end of December.
Ms. Masoula Collison, do you want to take that?
I do know that there's been, I believe, 3 payments. Julia, our Director Warwick is on. She could probably give you better specifics at where we're at right now.
Ms. Warwick, are you there? Welcome, Ms. Warwick. Did you catch that question?
Do you, Mayor Finch? Yes, I did. So as CAO Mizuki Collison mentioned, there have been some payments since that report was run. That report was run November 10th. So since then, there's been additional payments and the rodeo is currently sitting in a net deficit position of $1,284.
Councillor Oak?
Thank you, Julia. So I guess the concern I have is that I know the 25th anniversary was there was some extra cost involved to operate that, but I guess I have some concern about committing any funding to anything when that we're dipping out of the reserves to fund something when this rodeo was break even or close to it or whatever. So I don't think I'm in favor of the donation to any purpose at this point in time.
Thank you. Deputy, a comment?
Just a comment on that. I guess we looked at the reserves of $89,900 and there was a big discussion at the committee level of, do we need that much in the reserves? How can we help people? And it doesn't really fit with memorandum of understanding, but it does. We're trying to help the community. And I guess that's what the committee was looking at. We understand there's $40,000 to get into next year already. So I guess that's all I have to say about it.
Councillor Oak, microphone, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and yeah, so the terms of reference does state that you know, the purpose of any funds is to go to just reading here, all proceeds not earmarked are to go directly back into recreation projects in the community. So I guess you know, that's what our terms of reference says. I know this has come to council other years, and this got turned down the last time it came to council as well. And so just thinking that, you know, our terms of reference are specific to recreation projects. And so I'm you know, all supportive of you know, helping the community for sure. And but you know, we do have guidelines that we're needing to follow with terms of reference. So I'm just thinking that we need to stay good to our roots, because it was the last council meeting where there was concern about getting into the community grant process. And this is a committee of council, and so this is looking to do the same thing. So and so there was comments to that effect at our last council meeting. So I don't think a committee of council should be any different than council.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Neeb.
I guess the other item too is, does the terms of reference specifically lay out a cap or a specific amount that must be in the reserve? Because I do think maybe that would need to be reviewed. I can understand why we wouldn't want to get in the grant business. However, we do know that this is a time of need, and the food bank is in need. So like I'm in favor of moving forward, but I also agree with Councillor Oak that we need to ensure that the terms of reference is clearly laid out as to, you know, what is the amount that is needed in the reserve on an annual basis. Because again, sitting on $89,000, you know, it's, you know, it could be put somewhere. So maybe a rec project, but I think this year the food bank is a deserving cause.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor
Um, yeah, I tend to agree with Councillor Oak's commentary. We don't have very many recreation projects or recreation areas that actually make money for this municipality. We have some very heavy subsidization going on at our arenas all the time. And we also contribute quite a bit to the community with premises, facilities that we offer at free of charge for people to be able to raise money for various charitable events. And so I don't really see the rodeo as being a recreational aspect of South Huron that should be taking whatever kind of surpluses or profits that they may have and deciding how the or recommending how the municipality use those funds. I think we should be looking at recreation as a whole. We created that term of reference for a reason, and I would not support this either.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Basu-Collison, comment?
I'm wondering if perhaps a member of council maybe would consider calling for a split of this motion, just so that they both don't go. Another option could be to send it back to the rodeo committee and ask them to report back on what kind of reserves are needed, let's say, to move forward, at least for information, at a minimum.
Comments? Councillor Oak?
I think it should be split because I think there's probably a commitment that needs to be made on the 40,000 to move forward for the coming year for the rodeo. So I would be in favor of splitting that to have the second part as a separate recommendation.
Okay, thank you. We can do that. Any other comments? Okay, turn to Madam Clerk.
Okay, I'll read the
Ms.
the
Masood?
motion.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, Madam,
Sorry.
do you want to? Madam Clerk, go ahead.
So the recommendation that would be on the table that South Huron Council receives the draft minutes of November 29th, 2023 as presented would be your first motion.
Okay, and we have a mover for this already, do we not?
Yes, moved by Deputy Mayor Dietrich, second by Councillor Neeb.
Okay, so we have that on the table. All in favor of that? Or discussion on that, sorry? Counselor Neeb, question?
This is just to receive the minutes, correct?
This just to receive, yeah,
Yep.
so there'll be.
Just want to read that again, just so we're clear.
So the first recommendation that South Huron Council receives the draft minutes of November 29th, 2023 as presented.
So any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you. And then Madam Clerk, go ahead.
So the next recommendation would be that South Huron Council approve the following recommendation of the Exeter Rodeo Committee, that a $10,000 donation be made to a local food bank.
Okay, and we've had the same mover and a seconder. If there's any, is there any discussion? Okay, not seeing it. Call the question, all in favor? And opposed? And that is defeated. Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk?
And the next recommendation would be that South Huron Council approves the recommendation of the Exeter Rodeo Committee that this municipality of South Huron enter into a 1-year contract with Rodeo Management Group in the amount of $40,000.
And do we have the same mover and a seconder? If there's any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, how do you wish to proceed from here? Anything further? You're caught up? Okay. And Ms. Masood Carlson, go ahead.
that South Huron Council receives the draft minutes of November 29th, 2023 as presented and approve the following recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee as follows. That 2 subgroups be created to explore options for education programs and initiatives for property owners with respect to appropriate conservation, maintenance, and restoration practices, including the making of sympathetic improvements to enhance the municipality's heritage character and vibrancy. Chair Moore, Member Vorman, and Member Jones to focus on education for the general public. Vice Chair Dinny, Member Neeb, and Member Gill to focus on education for property owners already on the municipal heritage register.
And do you have a mover for that, please? Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Discussion? Councillor Vaughn?
I just have a clarifying question for Aaron. Councillor Neeb, what is a sympathetic improvement?
Councillor Neeb?
From my understanding, and I'll look to staff to correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're making any improvement that it's sympathetic to the heritage qualities that are already within the building. So if you're doing something new to the building, that whatever you're doing to it is sympathetic towards whatever is already there on a heritage building.
Thank you.
Clear as mud, I know.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions then? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. No further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Ms. Masood Carlson.
That South Huron Council receive the Committee of the Whole minutes of December 6, 2023 as presented and approve the Committee of the Whole recommendations as follows. That Council approve the draft cost sharing agreement in principle and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign a cost sharing agreement with Trident Group Limited and Trident Properties Limited for the extension of the Grand Bend trunk sewer, subject to approval of an associated budget.
And do we have a mover, please? Councillor Neeb, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn?
Yes, I have a prepared statement that I'd like to go through. I probably will be in excess of 5 minutes. I haven't been able to talk fast enough to get it under that.
Are there any issues with Councillor? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in April of this year, council underwent its priority setting process. We reaffirmed our mission, our vision, our value statements, as well as the pillars under which we would operate. We elected to use a defined set of 8 decision criteria when selecting priorities, and we were also looking into enhancing our communications, engaging our community using multiple lenses when either establishing priorities or adopting new solutions. We would seek out partnerships, both internal and external to our community, and we would continue to advocate at all levels of government. When we spoke of sustainable growth, we discussed many positive opportunities. To name a few, the further building up of Exeter, updating our official plan and possibly preparing a growth study, our master fire services plan, parks and recreation improvements, community safety and well-being plans, and maintaining our assets for future generations. We wished to leverage the strengths we already have, one of which is a substantial number of infrastructure pipes that are already in the ground. We spoke of phase 1 of the trunk sewer line from Municipal Drive to Indian Road, and we were aware that Tridon Development would be able to make use of that trunk line, whether they accessed it through the municipality's owned Oakwood pumping station or through a pipe of their own. At that time, we never spoke of oversizing a sewage pipe to accommodate even more future development. Nor did we talk about expanding the settlement area of Port Blake north of the Tridon lines to Highway 83. Nor did we talk about rezoning prime agricultural lands to accommodate that future development. But here we are, just 6 months later. We have been presented with an opportunity to oversize a pipe. Yet what it is really beginning to come to light is an opportunity to arbitrarily decide not to plan for the future of the Port Blake planning area, not to consider any of the financial operating costs that will come from growing out this area, not to consult with any of the public who live there in that neighborhood or in any other part of South Huron. We are not even discussing our thinking with the neighboring municipality who currently provides the services and economic realities to those who currently do live in the lakeside community. The only opportunity I'm really seeing is that we will charge all of South Huron's sewer users for the cost of this oversized pipe, whether it's through reserves or the next Watson study. At the end of the day, if the government doesn't pay for it through a grant, or we don't collect money through development charges, the users are going to pay. So to make my decision, I look back at our decision criteria. First one was living within our means. Are we? We certainly have lots of pipes in the ground through South Huron, both water and sewer pipes. It's one of the strengths we highlighted in our recent SWOT analysis. But is it really a strength? As at December 31, 2022, our municipality had $22 million in long-term debt, and $17 million of that was for water and sewer pipes. That's a lot of pipe debt for a municipality of 10,000 people. We should be leveraging what we have as opposed to adding more. The level of debt we currently have leaves very little room for us to finance other priorities or consider future growth opportunities. So no, I don't think this initiative demonstrates that we are living within our means. We said we would have outcome-focused, clear measurables identified. It's a myth to say that users of sewer services will not have to pay for the oversized pipe. It is also unrealistic to say that users are just carrying the burden of the cost of future development until such time as that burden is repaid to them. It is our existing users who pay the capital or ongoing operating costs of anything related to water or sewer that has not been paid by a developer, by the collection of development fees, or by another level of government. We call those user fees. There's no plan to ever repay users. One might think that the more users we have, the more you can spread costs amongst users. But with our existing asset management plan, commitments to continuously repair and replace these assets, additional users are only going to mean more assets that need more care. Since 2004, South Huron has created bylaws that provide for the deferral of capital cost recoveries pending the arrival of future development. On December 6th, Council was advised $444,000 has been collected from this source, and that there remains total principal and interest amounts of $3,465,000 still awaiting recovery. I do not consider this a great measure of success when 2.3 million of this amount relates to projects that were debentured almost 20 years ago. Needs-based. The only need I see before us is the need for Tridon to have a pipe that is sized to accommodate their phase 1 and phase 2 developments. Other needs presented for council consideration have effectively been anecdotal expressions of interest in future development. But there's no clear timelines as to when, and no future developers have committed the funds to preserve their future sewage capacity allocations. I don't see a need at all. What I see is hope, and hope is not a strategy. South Huron focused. A recent priority setting was focused on all areas of South Huron. We discussed the essential need for planning. An official plan or a growth plan would allow us to define future improvements or enhancements and describe how, when, and where we intended to grow, what our existing communities might envision for their future, for recreation, for trails, for community safety, where our commercial, retail, and employment lands would be, and how we plan to attract and retain the citizens that we have. It is unwise for us to focus simply on more residential development without regard to affordability, or to expect that we can simply piggyback off the services that a neighboring municipality has to offer without contributing to the costs of providing such. Forward-looking and proactive. There are many ways to be proactive. Leaders need not only to learn to say yes to growth, but they also have to have the courage to say no. There are those that believe continuous growth is proactive, as it is a way to provide for future generations. Yet not all growth is positive. It can come at a high cost, particularly if it's not well planned. Dividing our resources and duplicating services across multiple urban locations requires considerable financial analysis from a cost and a revenue perspective. Our asset management plan mantra is spending the right money on the right asset or activity at the right time. I believe we should be an affordable community for today and for future generations. Are we aligned with legislative responsibilities? Well, on this initiative, there's no legislative responsibilities per se, but our focus should be on retaining primary agricultural lands and pursuing affordable housing, just like every other municipality across Canada is trying to do right now. We do not have enough affordable housing in South Huron, and we will not achieve this goal by focusing on developments in lakeshore communities. Finishing what we've started. Since setting our priorities last April, we are making good progress on this decision criteria. We have many priorities in South Huron. During the 2024 budget, we have placed priority on finishing what we've started and enhancing certain projects that could use extra resources. Years ago, South Huron set out to improve the quality of life for its residents through the provision of environmentally conscious sewage services. With those initiatives came considerable assurances that these new sewage systems would facilitate development, and that over time, communities such as Huron Park, Centralia, Crediton, and London Road would see the benefit of our investments. It's time to finish what we started. In closing, I completely recognize that Tridon requires a sewage pipe to get to the Gren Bend Sewage Treatment Facility. I have never said otherwise. I will support Tridon's build of a pipe to satisfy their own sewage needs for phase 1 and 2. I will not support any motion that includes oversizing a pipe for $600,000 plus, where I see no bona fide needs and where I know that users will foot the bill until such time as future development occurs. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Any other comments? Oh, that's it. Councilor Neave, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Finch. So since our last meeting, I had the opportunity to review the 2023 population and housing forecast update presented at the Huron County Economic Development Board by Watson and Associates, which was on December 7th, 2023. In the report, it's a fantastic report, and I'm sure it's going to be coming down the pipes at some point. But the report mentions that by 2051, the population of Huron County is projected to increase to 82,000 on the low scenario and 98,000 in the high scenario. So the current population of Huron County is just over 60,000. So with anticipated growth, we'll need services like this sewer and the expanded sewer to allow for growth, which is a benefit for all sewer users. By having this sewer service, we can ensure that we have adequate housing for now and for the future in multiple locations across the municipality. This is a decades-long investment. Furthermore, the 2018 to 2022 Council agreed unanimously to fund the initial phase of this trunk line sewer with a cost of almost $2 million, knowing that this sewer would service more than just Tridon, and we wanted to ensure that we future-proofed the initial investment. We can't expand the pipe without it being the right size up the street, which it is. It is the right size to accommodate current housing and residences along 21 Highway, as well as future development decades into the future. I think this is a really good example of finishing what we've started so that it's available for future development. So I continue to be in favor of moving forward with this investment, as it is a necessary cost to ensure that our municipality remains competitive and our sewer rates are reasonable into the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Councillor McLeod-Haggett.
So looking back at the project, I went through many different scenarios, and it always led me back to some of the following points. We are already under financial pressure for the other projects already on the go and already planned as priorities for 2024, 25, and 2026. We are currently $22 million in debt. From that, 17 million is for water and sewer. Our existing users are repaying these debts. These are being paid through the user fees, the amounts that we have deferred awaiting for future development. I've heard it being said that this is not being paid through the user fees, but in fact, actually users pay for all of these projects unless they are paid by developers, other levels of government, or development charges. We also take into consideration that there's going to be a new Watson report done in 2024 that will review all of the water and sewer projects that we have on our list to complete. With this, do we take the chance that the Watson report is going to come back and tell us that we have to up our user fees to cover all of these current obligations to complete the projects already planned? Another opinion that I've heard on the table is creating a bylaw as per the Municipal Act, which allows us to defer collection fees until such time as further development occurs. until such time that further development does occur, all South Huron sewer users will be paying the cost. I would also like to note, and kind of piggybacking on what Marissa had commented, back in 2023, the priority setting process was completed by this current council. So I would ask council to go back and look at what was agreed to be part of the priority setting. At the end of the day, I think it all comes down to the fact that we have not had a good planning session of our official plan, which articulates our vision for South Huron's future.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, not seeing any. Deputy, if you want to take the chair for a minute, please. Thank you. I want to thank all the residents that were engaged in this democratic process. I've read each of your letters over the last 4 years related to the Tridon development and the sewage expansion proposal. There will be many who agree with these projects, and there will be those in disagreement. In the end, we either agree or agree to disagree, but the decision must be made in the best interest of the future of South Huron. On December 14th, and because of the Tridon development and the sewage expansion conversation, I attended an open house in Lambton Shores about future recreation for the Grand Bend region. My interest is to listen to discussions, since the reality is that as the continuum of intensified housing development moves forward, which brings more people, so should potential partnerships be considered as to what is possible with affordable recreation with our trusted partners in Lambton Shores. Again, this is about the future of the Grand Bend area because long-term planning is well beyond 20 years. Excuse me. This is a 100-year legacy project taking us to 21-24 and beyond, which will strategically position the Grand Bend area long after we are all gone. 100 years ago, there was a single cottage at Oakwood Park that started this conversation. And then about 50 years ago, Grand Cove developed, not to mention the other developments along Highway 21. The reality is that those leaders from 100 years ago are long gone, but the entire region is still benefiting from those calculated risks and vision. And our visionary decisions will also outlast and benefit generations. The public record of how we got there will continue to outlive us all. And it should be noted that there is no increase in taxes because this is not a project paid for by taxes. This is a user fee system that legally allows us to leverage funds in current sewer reserves from all of South Huron users, and not just Grand Bend, that are on sewage pipes. And those reserves are for the sustainability of current and future users, which is what the plan was about when the sewage treatment plant was built years ago. We have done this before and has been successful. The users are only carrying the cost as we did in other projects. There's nothing being borrowed from outside sources at this, and no out-of-pocket costs. And this is not about Tridon getting something for nothing. If anything, it is about us taking advantage of the opportunity that became available to us because of the Tridon development. Rome was not built in a day, so it will take a while for other developers to pursue opportunities and official plans to come forward. To say no to this, then you'd be saying no to intensified housing. You'd be saying no to economic development that will only contribute to increased housing costs and missed economic opportunities for South Huron long after we are gone. The whole area is actually referred to as the Port Blake planning area for a reason. Hence, this area has been targeted for development of some kind for decades. A friend of mine has been following the discussions on housing in South Huron. She has a house for rent in South Huron and states that in the short time has been advertised, less than a month, that more than 100 people have contacted her to rent it. That is the scale of the housing shortfall just in South Huron. This investment is a wise investment for South Huron. This is a well-researched, calculated risk that will position South Huron as a community where people will want to migrate to over the next 100 years and beyond. Respectfully, this is all about common sense, and for transparency, I'll be asking for a recorded vote. Thank you. Any other questions, comments at this time? No, oh, good. I'm Susan Carlson.
I'm just gonna see if I could ask for a split or division, just so that we can have the committee of the whole minutes received, if that works with council.
Is council agreeable to that? Okay, very well. Madam Clerk?
South Huron Council received the committee of the whole minutes of December 6, 2023 as presented.
And the mover was?
Counselor Neeb and seconded by Deputy Mayor Dietrich.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
That South Huron Council approved the committee of the whole's recommendations as follows. The council approved the draft cost sharing agreement in principle, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign a cost sharing agreement with Trident Group Ltd. and Trident Group Properties Ltd. for the extension of the Grand Bend Trunk Sewer, subject to approval of an associated budget. Moved by Councillor Neeb, seconded by Deputy Mayor Dietrich, and Mayor Finch called for a recorded vote. Councillor Dietrich,
No.
Councillor Neeb,
Yes.
Councillor McLeod Higgett,
No.
Councillor Vaughn,
No.
Deputy Mayor Dietrich,
Yes.
Councillor Oak,
No.
Mayor Finch.
Yes.
So that's defeated 4-3.
Hey, Madam Clerk, when you're ready.
So as that recommendation was defeated, the next recommendation, which related to recovering oversizing costs through cost recovery bylaw, automatically fails. There's nothing to action because the previous recommendation failed.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Carlson?
That is correct. So we'll just pass on that one. And next item is 8.10, councillor appointment. So that Councillor McLeod Haggett be appointed as the council representative to the Exeter Business Improvement Area, South Huron Chamber of Commerce, and South Huron Volunteer Appreciation Event Committee.
And is there a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? And that carries with 7. Very well. Next, welcome aboard. 9, please.
The South Huron Council received the report from Melissa Keller, Manager of Environmental Services, results of annual DWQMS Annual Management Review.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Discussion? Okay, not seeing any. We have Alyssa on board here. If anybody wants to ask any questions, there's no discussion. Oh, Councillor Neeb, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Alyssa, for the report. One of the items in the audit was completing a water loss report in Stephen along the lakeshore, and I'm just wondering when we're going to receive that report.
Alyssa, would you be able to have that?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Finch, it is still being worked on. There has been delays because of COVID, and there's also been delays with our engineer, but we are still working on it. I don't have a tentative deadline for you, but I'm hoping to have one in 2024.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Councillor Neeb? Go ahead.
And again, it identified the lakeshore region. Are other areas of Stephen Township also going to be looked at? I know that there has been issues in the past too with pipes in other areas of Stephen, and I know the lakeshore has high pressure. I'm just wondering if the other areas are going to be looked at too, or whether that's necessary.
Ms. Keller?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Finch, it would be all of Stephen being looked at.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, not seeing. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? And that carries a 7. Thank you. 9.3.2.
The South Huron Council receives the report from Don Giberson, General Manager of Infrastructure and Development. We proposed external oversizing agreement, CVD Exeter Inc., And that South Huron Council authorize staff to prepare a draft external oversizing agreement for council consideration at a future council meeting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Counselor Neeb. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 9.4.
The South Huron Council receives a report of Stacy Jeffrey, Community Relations Manager, Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, Annual Update.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, second by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 9.4.2. Deputy, you had something? No problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just like to thank Stacy for all her work because it is a lot of work. And I'm sure glad she's on board because I wouldn't want to take that position on. So thanks, Stacy.
Is Stacy with us tonight? Stacy, you there? Okay, thanks. I think she's left again. Great. Thank you very much. Moving right along, Ms. Missoula Carlson.
The South Huron Council accepts a report from Scott Curry, Manager of Communications and Strategic Initiatives, titled 2024 Experience Ontario Grant Application for information, and that council authorizes the application to the Experience Ontario Grant Program administered by the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport in support of the 2024 Exeter Rodeo.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Oak, second by Counselor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. Ms. Missoula Carlson.
The South Huron Council receives a report of Julie Warwick, Director of Financial Services Treasurer, Reprocurement of Goods and Services Policy. And the council approved the amendment to the Procurement of Goods and Services Policy as presented, and that the draft bylaw be provided to council for the required 3 readings.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, second by Counselor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 6. Thank you. 9.4.4.
The South Huron Council received the report of Alex Wolf, Acting Clerk, and Stacy Jeffrey, Community Relations Manager, Annual Accessibility Report.
And a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Dietrich, seconded by Counselor Oak. Any discussion? Counselor Oak.
Yeah, just a question on 2025, the AODA requirements, and just wondering how we're making out overall with our facilities for that timeline.
Madam Clerk, do you want to take that?
So the requirements, under my understanding, would be for any new facilities or necessarily renovations to same, but any current facilities that are not being renovated, there aren't necessarily requirements to upgrade them to meet those standards, but as they are being renovated, they'd be upgraded to meet AOD standards.
Ms. Missoula Carlson, comment?
I think by 2025, we are to be compliant, but I'm hoping that the building condition assessment that's happened will provide us the information that we need to what else needs to be upgraded. So hopefully Q1, we're hoping in 2024 for that to come back to council as well.
Okay, Counselor Oak.
Thank you. I know we've made a lot of progress and just wondered where we were, and you're right, the condition assessment will help with that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? That carries a 7. Thank you. Next item, please.
That South Huron Council receives a report of Alex Wolf, Acting Clerk, Retail Business Holidays Act and Liquor License and Control Act for information.
And we have a mover, please. Moved by Counselor Neeb, seconded by Counselor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Counselor Oak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And thanks for the report, Alex. Just wondering, last week's announcements by the province that they're implementing, changes to things as far as alcohol in corner stores and that. Just wondered, will that affect this at all? These legislations, or maybe it's too early to say yet, but.
Through the chair. So at this point in time, until the actual acts or receive royal assent for changes, it'd be too early to say whether it will affect these particular acts or not. The Retail Business Holidays Act does have very set exemptions set out, and liquor license, liquor sales does fall under an exemption depending on, as long as you're not considered a retail business under the Liquor Control Act. So if it was, say, a restaurant selling beverages, you'd be fine. Assuming you had received an exemption to the Retail Businesses Act based on your size. But yeah, so the corner store itself, so here on Mini Mart, based on some of the items they sell and the size, they are exempt from the Retail Business Holidays Act. But the liquor aspect of it, because they'd be considered a retail store, they have to fall under any exemptions the municipality has, which is why for them to sell liquor, they would need an exemption on those additional dates they've requested.
Any other comments? Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, so if I remember correctly, this all started as a result of a letter we received from the Minimart. So now that we have this before us and we're about to receive a report, it's not really a motion here, but are we going to be communicating back to the Minimart about our position?
Madam Clerk.
So through the chair, so this report was for information. Council, if council was to choose to expand on the holiday hours outlined in the current bylaw, you're welcome to do so. Otherwise, if you're remaining with the current bylaw, anybody has the right to request an exemption. And the process would be staff would proceed with setting up a public meeting. So here on Mini Mart would get to have a public meeting where anybody could provide comment on whether they are agreeable to them having exemptions to the current bylaw, and proceed that way. So if council does not expand on the current bylaw that lists three holidays, any business that kind of relates to the Retail Business Holidays Act could reach out to council and request an exemption, and each of those requests would have to go through a public meeting process.
Ms. Masu-Collison, comment?
Through the chair, I would just add to Alex's that we did reach out to the BIA and Chamber, and there was no other interest really. So then it from a staff level, it was if this is a one-off rather than change the whole bylaw, to go the public meeting route and just have this, and Alex would coordinate that.
Councillor Oak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so basically in the report, it gave us a couple options as council, and it looks like option one is probably the way to go. Just leave the bylaw as is, and if somebody wants to explore it further, then they can go through the process. This is the way it looks.
Okay, Councillor Vaughn.
Yeah, it seemed to me there was also something in this report about council maybe should consider some kind of fee structure for the administrative effort of going through this. Was that also a part of option one?
Through the chair, so yes, if council were to remain with the current process, anytime somebody was to request an exemption, there'd have to be a public meeting set. So notice staff time associated with that. So something for council to consider would be a possible fee to be added for cost recovery, should you choose.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, Councillor Oak?
Yeah, just to that point then, is that something that might be considered in the fee review that's being done as we speak?
Ms. Masu-Collison.
Yes, well, we will have that added to our list and just incorporate it there for council information.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Councillor Vaughn.
I just would like to say that I would support option one as recommended by the staff. So I don't know if you're looking for a motion,
So we.
other opinions?
We don't need any motion then?
No,
We're
I
good?
think we're good.
Yep. Very well. Any other comments then? Okay, not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? And that carries with 7. Thank you. 9.4.6.
The South Huron Council received the memo, Rebecca Msuya-Collison, Chief Administrative Officer, Huron Health System request to council, an interim report for information.
And the mover, please. Councillor Oak, seconded by Deputy Mayor. A discussion. Councillor Oak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Rebecca, for the report. I guess so. One comment I would have is that we're waiting for an acceptance of our delegation requests from the Ministry of Health to continue to lobby for the family health team, and just hoping that we get another delegation in front of them. I'm not sure if we've heard anything yet from any of the delegation requests.
Ms. Mr. Carlson, comment?
Through the mayor, we haven't heard anything yet. The last time with Roma, it was about 2 or 3 weeks ahead of time. So I'm hoping beginning of January. At our last delegation with the AMO, we did do a delegation in favor of the application as well for a family health team. And this was part of the submission for this delegation as well for Roma.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor Need.
Thank you to staff for the report, and the report had outlined a number of different ways that municipalities have and can support healthcare in their communities, from very small budget implications to very large budget implications. And I think there's a lot in here to digest and think about. I also think there's an opportunity for us to be creative as a council and figuring out how to support healthcare in our community. Given the scope, I think we should maybe have a committee of the whole to flesh some of these ideas out and maybe come up with an approach, as there was a financial ask a few months ago, and they were looking for a timely response from council. So I'm wondering if maybe we can have a committee of the whole sometime in the new year to figure out what direction we want to go in, and how we want to play a role in supporting healthcare locally. And I don't know how. I think that's going to be a tough discussion to have. We all know the importance of healthcare to our community and its sustainability. So anyways, that's my thought.
Ms. Mr. Carlson.
Through the mayor. So I have been in conversations with Jimmy, the CEO of the South Huron Hospital Association. And basically at this point, they're waiting to see how the application goes for the family health team. And at that point, depending on whether they're successful or not, their asks could change. So that was why at this point, I thought I'd give an interim report just to provide council some high level information. Once they're assured about which path they're going to pick and what they're going to need, then we'll have more information. And then I can bring that back to council for a committee of the whole for further discussion at that time.
Councillor Oak.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. I would encourage, if you're talking to them, that if there's a committee to be struck, that they would maybe drive the bus of the committee, the hospital, and have a member of council on the committee, and community members as well. But I think my thought is that it should be driven by the hospital and the doctors that are operating it, and we, as a partner in it, should sit at the table as well, because it is, the hospital and the medical center are critical to our community, and we need to see how we can help.
Thank you. Mr. Carlson, do you need anything else? The recommendation at all?
I don't need anything at this time, anything further, and I will keep council updated.
Very well. So we have a mover and a seconder. There's no further discussion. Call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. On to item number 10, notice motion. Madam Clerk, I believe you have one in front of you.
Yes, so I have a notice of motion moved by Mayor Finch. Whereas community safety and well-being has been identified by council as a priority, and whereas community security has been identified as a priority area for action for all residents of all of South Huron and our visitors in our community safety and well-being plan. And whereas the use of regulatory signs, flashing beacons, and pavement markings at crossovers help reduce risk of serious injuries on municipal roads. And whereas pedestrian crossovers not only improve the safety of pedestrian connections, but also increase active transportation mobility. And whereas economic development is recognized as an important aspect for growth in our urban core. And whereas accessibility is an important part of the ability for all residents to access services, to enjoy their community safely, and to move about in a safe and secure way. Therefore, be it resolved that council endorse a recommendation for staff to investigate the costs and feasibility of the installation of a pedestrian crossover such as the PXO Level 2 Type C pedestrian crossover at or near the bump out on Main Street South in the community of Exeter. Is that your motion?
That's so moved. No, we'll wait till next meeting to proceed with that. Thank you. And on to number 11, delegations from December 4th. Any comments from members of council? Mr. Collison, do you have a comment?
Don't have a comment, but we had the Huron Standard Condominium Corporation number 7, Oakwood Links Lane, proposed Grand Van Trunk Sewer Extension. And we had Maureen Cole, South Huron Rec Center, Stephen Arena Accessibility, Building Fire Code Requirements and Expectations.
Any comments from members of council? Okay, not seeing any. Thank you. Move on to number 12. There's no new business. And under 13, mayor and councilor comments and announcements. Are there any comments or announcements at this time? Not seeing any. Okay. Councilor McLeod, hey, go ahead.
Sorry. So this past weekend, I was part of Andrea Lusenhausen from Noah's Ark. Her and I started, it was 3 or 4 years ago, the Angel Project, where we help many families within our community that are struggling this time of the year with Christmas fast approaching. Last year we started, which all came from a Hallmark movie, the Children's Shopping Day, where we had a bunch of donations given so that children could come in by themselves and shop for their parents. So they got to pick out some gifts, and we had wrapping stations, and Emily from the barn came and did a craft. So last year we came up with the idea and had 2 weeks to pull it together. So we think we had about 60 kids last year. This year we had the entire upstairs of the church full of tables of donated gifts. We had a cookie decorating station, and Emily came again and did a craft. And we guesstimate that we probably had about 150 kids. Let me tell you, my heart was full. It was amazing. This coming Wednesday, we are doing the Angel Project part of it. So we are setting it up this year where rather than the families that are in need, and when I say families in need, I don't mean, I'm talking about literally your neighbor who has a job, has a house, has a car, just cannot make ends meet. So we're estimating we'll probably have about 400 families come through this year. So the whole sanctuary upstairs will be like a big store. They can come in and there's toys, there's brand new clothes racks that are set up, and a grocery style that they will be able to get everything they need for Christmas Day, for breakfast, snacks, and a complete turkey and or ham dinner so that no one is going without this holiday season. And this is all donations from local community businesses. Yeah, our community in this aspect is phenomenal. So yeah.
Okay, great. Any other comments? Not seeing any. Okay, well, just the mayor's comments. It's a Christmas message to everyone here. So I'd like to take a moment and reflect on my past 5 years as the proud mayor of South Huron. I would like to first thank the staff who just do such incredible work each day. It is unparalleled anywhere, and they are here for the long haul, as we have seen in the service awards earlier tonight. We do live in the greatest place in the world, and we need to appreciate the many blessings that we enjoy daily. From our amazing staff, as I mentioned, our community volunteers, our healthcare, education, and indeed our incredible professional volunteer fire department. We should never take anything for granted because it could change in a heartbeat. Christmas time is that time of year for family, friends, fellowship, and especially reflection on those blessings. And many complain about taxes, about the cost of water, etc., but we never complain about getting sick from the water because it is the safest in the world. We never complain about how much it costs to go to the doctors because we all pay in that system with those taxes. There are literally millions of people who give all they have to be in our shoes. And council's role is to provide the basic needs of a community and to work with them to help to achieve their wants, as is the community that makes it vibrant. But it all starts with someone, and that someone is each of us. If you see an opportunity to make South Huron better, then please make it happen. And Christmas is a very challenging time for many, and although we may not see it, we all know it does exist. So it's important for all of us to work together, and especially to be kind and respectful to each other, and not just at this time of year, but at all times. So I thank you very much, and I wish all of you a very Merry Christmas. And if there's no other comments, we will move on to our next items, number 14. Ms. Masuda Carlson.
14.1. 14.2. 14.
Pull that one.
For
Yep.
2. 14.3.
Pull that one.
14.4, that includes 14.4.1 to 14.4.9. And 14.5.
Okay, 14.2, Councillor Oak.
Yeah, I just want to congratulate the Huron Shores Area Transit. They've have exceeded their goal as of the end of November, and with over 18,000 riders on a goal of 16,000, and looking to hit 20,000 by the end of December. So I think that's a great news story. They've got some new initiatives with Flex Stop that they're gonna try to connect with in London. So there's it's a great news story that it continues to grow, and a service that is being offered in the community here. So just wanted to say thank you and congratulations.
Great, thank you for that. And 14.3, I wanted to pull, but so did you, Councillor Oak. Did you want to speak to that?
Yes, just I guess wanted to ask the CEO what our next steps are on this request, or the clerk, I guess, whoever's responsible for this area.
Ms. Masuda Carlson.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I think the next step would be for staff to bring back a report, providing an outline of next steps and considerations, as well as a background on what happens when a municipality receives a request from a cemetery.
And do you need a resolution for that at all?
Yes.
Okay, so moved.
Yes.
And Madam Clerk, do you have that prepared? And I'll ask for a seconder when you're ready.
That South Huron Council direct staff bring a report back outlining the process for transferring ownership responsibility of the Old Methodist Cemetery, Site 01606 from Kirkton United Church, Kirkton Methodist Cemetery Board to the municipality for council consideration.
So moved, Councillor Oak.
Yes.
And seconder, Councillor Neeb. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, just thinking in terms of with that report, will there also be some kind of statement in terms of how that might affect our budget going forward?
Ms. Masuda Carlson or Madam Clerk, who would like to take that? Ms. Masuda Carlson.
This particular one is an abandoned cemetery, sorry about that. And we can certainly do that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Oak.
And I guess also in the report, it'll talk about the legislative requirements that we have that the province has downloaded to us that's basically falls on our jurisdiction if this happens, and we don't have any choice to that matter.
Ms. Masuda Carlson.
Through the mayor, yes. It will include it, and that's why I made the statement that it is an abandoned cemetery, because it could very well be one that is active at some point.
Okay, thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. 14.4, Councillor Vaughn.
Yes, I just wanted to thank all of the constituents for continuing to send in their letters and their advice and their recommendations as we, as a council, tried to grapple with the issue we've been discussing for the last 2 months. So thanks to all our citizens for participating.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we all echo that. It's great to see the democratic process in works and thank you. And nothing further on 14.4, move on to 14.5. And I was asking for that to be pulled, as was Councillor Oak. And Councillor Neeb, you have a comment? Councillor Oak, you have a comment?
I will just request that we support this resolution, that the of the tax credit for volunteer firefighters, the ask is to go from $3,000 to $10,000 a year as a tax credit based on how many hours of service that they're putting in. So I think this is a very worthwhile resolution.
And I'll just advise, we did approve that at county council last week, and I made that motion. I forget who seconded it, but it was approved also. Councillor Neeb, you'll second that then? Okay, is there any further discussion on that? Not seeing any, call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Recommendation, Ms. Masuda Carlson.
Let South Huron Council receive communication items not otherwise dealt with.
And a mover, please. Moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor McLeod Haggett. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. No closed session, therefore no report from closed session under 16. We move on to 17.1, please.
Let South Huron Council give first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 75/2023, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 69/2018 of the municipality of South Huron for lands described as part lots 6 and 7, concession 3, and parts 52 to 54, 56 to 76, 83 to 89, part 55, 22R, 5240, Stephen Ward, municipality of South Huron.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Dietrich and seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. 17.2.
The South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 76/2023, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a site plan agreement between the corporation of the municipality of South Huron and Wonderland Power Center, Inc. in the municipality of South Huron in the county of Huron.
And a mover, please. Councillor Oak, seconded by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Councillor Vaughn, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I just have one question, which is, do we know what kind of restaurant this is going to be?
Ms. Masuda Carlson.
I'm not sure we can announce it yet.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd try. Okay.
Nice try. So we have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question, all in favor? And it carries with 6, I believe. Thank you. 7 now. Thank you. 17.3, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 77/2023, being a bylaw to authorize the execution of a land lease agreement between the corporation of the municipality of South Huron and 2923 Huron Middlesex Royal Canadian Army Cadet Corps.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Neeb, second by Councillor Vaughn. Any discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Carries with 7. Thank you. Confirming bylaw, please.
That South Huron Council gives first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 78/2023, being a bylaw to confirm matters addressed at the November 27th, 2023 budget meeting and the December 18th, 2023 council meeting.
And a mover, please. Moved by Councillor Vaughn, second by Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Call it. Oh, Councillor Dietrich, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Does that mean that this budget's been approved?
Ms. Masuda Carlson.
No, that's just for the special, it's just approving the minutes and everything that was confirmed at that budget meeting. Okay.
Any other questions, comments for staff? Not seeing any. We have a mover and a seconder. If there's no further discussion, call the question. All in favor? That carries with 7. Thank you. Next one, please.
That South Huron Council hereby adjourn at 8:00 p.m. to meet again on January 15th, 2024 at 6 p.m. or at the call of the chair.
Moved by Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Neeb. No discussion. Call the question. All in favor?